Good day, Socio 106 class. This is now Module 2 on Environmental Sociology as a Field of Inquiry. There are three interrelated dimensions of environmental sociology: population dynamics, urbanization, and increasing threats to natural environment. Not only are all three important, but they are closely linked as well. For this module, let's focus on population dynamics. This module's coverage include population composition, population distribution and density, and factors affecting population change. Over a decade ago, there's been a lot of talk about what will happen to our planet when we reach 2012, the year the ancient Mayans claimed some great change would take place. While what many feared to happen in 2012 did not happen, our planet became home to 7 billion people, more than ever before in history. At one level, a record global population seems like a good thing. More people are alive and living better than ever before. We are now in year 2022, over 2 years into the world pandemic. Now, let's first discuss about population dynamics. How population is affected by its size, composition, distribution, density, changes, and factors affecting population changes. On population size, whether big population or small population. On composition, whether there are more young or old people, more of males or females. On distribution, where people are concentrated, rural or urban areas. On density, how many people are residing every square kilometer. And the changes, is the population increasing or decreasing? To understand these concepts well, in the context of environmental sociology, let's discuss these terms in detail, one by one. Population size starts off from a household. My household, your household. How many are you who share and eat same prepared food from the same kitchen? That's a household, not necessarily blood related. Households make up a city or a municipality, which make up a province. Provinces' population constitute a country's population. Here are a few of the countries in Southeast Asia and their corresponding population. The world population consists all the countries' population. Here, the countries are economically classified from more developed to less developed to least developed. Apparently, of the 7.8 billion world population, only 1.2 billion belong to the more developed category. The bulk of the population are in less developed countries. There's also classification according to income, with the bulk of countries in the middle income. According to United Nations definition, less developed countries are the following: countries of Africa, Asia, except Japan, Latin America and the Caribbean, and Oceania, except Australia and New Zealand. And the least developed countries are Afghanistan, Angola, Bangladesh, Benin, Bhutan, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cambodia, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Gambia, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Haiti, Kiribati, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Lesotho, Liberia, Madagascar, Malawi, Mali, Mauritania, Mozambique, Myanmar, Nepal, Niger, Rwanda, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Solomon Islands, Somalia, Sudan, Timor-Leste, Togo, Tuvalu, Uganda, Vanuatu, Yemen, and Zambia. Now, how fast did the world reach this 7.8 billion population? 12 years ago, when Homo sapiens sapiens, or human beings, had learned to cultivate the land, population was just 5 million people. Around 1750, the world population began to spike upward, and more than 80 million people are added each year. The United Nations Population Fund designated 12 October 1999 as the approximate day on which the world population reached 6 billion. It was officially designated as the day of 6 billion. As of mid-2021, world population is at 7.8 billion. In early 19th century, it took over 100,000 years to increase the population into another billion. But later, only a little over a decade, and there were another billion people. The world population is, in fact, projected to reach 9 billion by year 2046. These are the most populous countries in the world, with China and India in over a billion population. Of these 10 countries, 5 are in Asia, particularly South Asia. Let's add 4 more countries to include the Philippines, which is on the 13th spot with 110 million population. Let's proceed to the concepts of population composition in terms of age and sex, which are the most important characteristics of a population and differs in every place. A country may have an age structure which may be considered as young population, old population, or median population. A median population is exactly half the population that is older and half is younger. This structure, the sex composition, it is the number of males and females in each age group. And then this structure, the age and the sex composition, can have considerable impact on the population's current and future social and economic situation. Now, this diagram here of the world population's age and sex composition for year 2020 and then year 2021 clearly depicted predominance of male population from 0 age to 44 years old. Worldwide, there are more males born than females. Based on data, the same is true in the Philippines and many other countries. Between 45 to 59 years old, there are equal percentages between males and females. Upon reaching 60 years old, the sex ratio shifts and there is predominance of females than males. Let's have a look at the other age and sex ratio structures. This is of China for year 2020. This is of India for the same year. Then these are for year 2021. Note that China's one-child policy has been in place for 35 years. Hence, India is able to catch up. See the difference in the 40 years and below percentages. These are the Philippines, Japan, and France for year 2020 and for year 2021. Just showing slight difference. We can see the disparity between a third world country from a first world country in Asia and a first world country in Europe. A pyramidal shape depicting young population and these pillar shapes all in smaller pointed tips with more females than males, common to three. Implications of young population point to predominance of dependent children and a high number of labor force. Like us in the Philippines, since we have young age structure, we have lots of children that require health care, preschools, and more education budget. Also, we supply the world's demand for workers in terms of brains and bronze. Countries with older populations are undergoing the so-called demographic winter. These countries need to import labor force. They need to build more nursing homes and staff to care for them, which can be supplied from countries with young population like the Philippines. Now let's have a look at these age-sex pyramids in relation to the country's income. Okay, these are the countries of United States and Mexico. High-income nations have boxy shape like this in the America. Relatively low birth rate and low death rate as well. Whereas low-income nations have pronounced pyramid shape like this. And relatively, there's high birth rate and death rate. So we are now in the concepts of population distribution and density. Density pertains to the number of people per square kilometer for us here in the Philippines or miles for others. A place has either high density or low density. High density can be observed in urban areas, in the cities characterized by rat race lifestyle, high cost of living, congestion anywhere, traffic on streets, high casualty during disasters. Low density can be observed in rural areas, in the cities characterized by slow moving pace, low cost of living, lack of facilities, and transport difficulty like only once in a day towards the city. Now, this is the population and density of the different countries of the world. Areas in light color have low densities. In red, have the highest densities at over 550 people per square kilometer. In this ranking, here, Macau has a density of 21,450 people per square kilometer, followed by Singapore with 8,000. Well, Philippines has 365 people per square kilometer. And that when in fact you are going to be in Manila, there are really a lot of people in the metropolitan areas, in the megalopolis, but not in the rural areas. Now let's have a look at the factors affecting population change. Population change due to either of these factors: fertility, mortality, and migration. Fertility is the number of live births women have. Fertility is possibly affected by social, cultural, early or late marriage, and environmental, economic, and also, of course, health will affect fertility. So the younger the women marry, the more children. Mortality pertains to deaths that occur within a population. Mortality is linked to many factors such as age, sex, race, occupation, and economic status. Incidence of death can reveal much about a population's standard of living and health care. Because even if uh, someone has just a simple illness, uh, could lead to death because of absence of healthcare or very far, and might lose blood on the way. Now, migration pertains to the geographic movement of people across a specified boundary for the purpose of establishing a new permanent or semi-permanent residence. Migration increases the population of the area of destination and decreases the population of the area of origin. Population increase follows, where is this now? Wait. Okay, to continue, let's now discuss Malthusian Theory. Okay, that's by Thomas Robert Malthus from 1766 to 1834. He is an English economist and clergyman. Now, according to him, that migration increases the population, or a population increase follows a geometric progression, like 2, 4, 8, 16 to 32. That's to the nth, as in the case of the nth power. At such rate, Malthus concluded world population would soon soar out of control, whereas food production follows an arithmetic progression like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Just simple addition, subtraction. For Malthus, even with new agricultural technology, farmland is limited. Okay. Thus, Malthus presented a distressing vision of the future. People reproducing beyond what the planet could feed, leading ultimately to widespread starvation and war over what resources were left. In this global map, richest countries have population rates of less than 1%. Latin America and Asia have around 1.5%, while Africa 2.4%, despite only small increases in countries with a high rate of AIDS. Society's standard of living is closely related to its rate of population growth. Population is rising fastest in the world regions that can least afford to support more people. These are the concepts used in the Malthusian Theory, by the way. No? The baby boom, it's a dramatic increase in fertility rates and in the absolute number of births during the period following World War II. There was a baby boom in these years. Baby bust, there's a rapid decline in fertility rates to record low levels during the period immediately after the baby boom. Now let's have the demographic transition theory. It's a thesis that links population patterns to a society's level of technological development with 3 phases. The first phase, it's a transition, right, from phase 1 to 3. There was a high birth rate and a high death rate. In phase 2, there was high birth rate, then low death rate. Phase 3 has low birth rate and low death rate. During phase 1, it was during the pre-industrial agrarian societies. High birth rate, children were of economic value, and there was no birth control. That causes the high birth rate. While the low death rate, of course, low living standards and limited health care services. During the phase 2, it's the onset of industrialization. So the high birth rate was, of course, children still have that economic value and still no birth control, the low death rate, there's increase of food supplies, and the introduction of scientific medicine. So those diseases that can't be cured in this phase are already cured in this phase. High birth rate continues, so there's population boom, as we mentioned a while ago. In the third phase, it was during that when there was a mature industrial economy. So low birth rate was hit because there was the introduction of birth control. And so children became or regarded as liabilities. Low death rate because the scientific medicine has more advances. Okay. And this, in continuation, in the modification of the transition theory, there's already 1, 2, 3, 4. And with this post-industrial, which is the population growth is very slow. Now, it is hard to imagine what a global population next to 7.8 billion means. Just 50 years ago, the planet's population was less than half as big. While we can't be sure exactly what future decades will bring, we can be certain that huge changes are underway. More and more people demand more and more food. With food prices going up everywhere in some parts of the world, the cost of food is already reaching a crisis level. Similarly, with most of the planet's people now living in cities, the populations of the world's largest cities found in lower income nations are now far greater than ever before. Finally, the soaring population of our planet means that we now consume more and more oil, water, and other resources. In addition, we are creating unprecedented mountains of waste. And then we can discuss more in the next module.